everybody, welcome to another episode of Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, CB Baker. We got another great episode today, and hopefully y'all get to see this because you know that storm is bearing down on us and it's all on the news. So everybody out there, please be safe, and you'll catch us next week when you get back home and your internet and your power is back on. But Dr. Daniels, the topic today is how to avoid the valleys of life. And before we hit record, and we was talking about the ups and downs of life, and it was like, how do we keep ourselves from going into that valley?
Right.
And I know what a lot of motivational speakers would say. It's like that's where the character is built at, and you need that to help you be grateful for when you're on top. Mm-hmm. And I always be like, and they praise people for being broke, and I'm like, I don't want to be broke. I don't want to have to be broke in order to be successful. Right. I get it, you appreciate it more, but I don't want to have to be broke. Right. So, what ways can we do for the people that's doesn't want to go in a valley in order to succeed?
Well, and I think that's a good topic, because when you think about it, most people go through valleys in their life unnecessarily. And I'll say that too, it's unnecessary. And so when people say, well, going through the valley builds character, well, the presumption is I didn't have character in the first place.
Right.
And that doesn't mean I didn't have character.
Right.
Now, certainly, you can look at a person and determine more about them from their failures than you can their successes, and how they respond to crisis as opposed to, how they respond to good times. But the issue is one of preparation. I think that's the thing, is that, am I prepared for the valleys? Am I prepared so that when I do have a downturn, it has minimal impact on me? And the downturn can be financial. There are financial valleys. There are emotional valleys. It can be because you've lost a loved one through death. It can be because you've lost a loved one because they walked out on you and left you with a broken heart. It can be because I've lost a job. It can be any number of things that cause you to feel like you're just going through some things. But again, for most people, the problem is not one of going through the valley. It's one of being prepared for the valley. If I am prepared properly, that's what the Bible talks about. If I'm prepared properly, then I don't view it as a valley. In fact, what I can view it as is a period of rest. Because when you prepare for something, now you can relax as you go through. And it's not really a valley. It's just a time of rest as you kind of re-energize yourself for the next program or for the next thing that comes ahead of you.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I know in the journey for me for reading the Bible and all the characters I've ran across so far, the people in there, like you said, no one was perfect, by far perfect. And it seemed like God used the most imperfect person to be able to show his greatness to the world. But the ironic thing is, Pastor, and this is very consistent, after he get his people out of trouble, within a matter of 50 years, they're right back, if not less than that, they're right back in the boat. The second that the prophet dies or the leader dies, they're right back in the same situation. So how can we stop that from happening?
Well, what you said is critical, because if you look at the tides and the ups and downs, it was if they had a great leader and followed the leader, spiritual leader, then they remained on top. It was when the leader either died or they stopped following that leader that it went down. And that's the problem that most people have in their lives. It's just kind of the same thing, is that we, even though we don't say we view God as our servant, that's how we treat God. If you think about the average prayer that people pray, the prayers are prayers, give me, Lord, give me. We may even acknowledge he's a great God in that prayer, but the bulk of their prayers, Lord, give me this, Lord, protect me from this. Lord, watch over my children. Lord, do this. Lord, help me get a promotion. Help me get this. It's a give me prayer. So it's like we're looking for a welfare system from God. So what we have to back up and say is that what was the reason? Why was I created? And that's why I'm saying if we prepared for the valley, why was I created? And so what would cause God to want to keep me successful even in the down times? Because if let's say if it's a Great Depression, if I'm successful, I don't consider it a valley, right? If I lose my job, but if I still have food and plenty of food, clothes, and my bills are paid, it's not a valley. Now, so what would give God incentive to make me always be successful in downturns, economic terms, or if someone walks out on me? Well, the Bible says I am made for God's glory. Basically, I'm made for God's pleasure. I'm made so that God could take pleasure in my life and what I am. Now, I think the basic problem is that most people don't live their lives that way, as if they're saying, I'm living my life for God's pleasure. We're living our life for God to pleasure us. Okay, and we wonder why we go in those turns. But if I'm living my life to pleasure God, my thinking is different. My whole thinking is different. My purpose in life is different. If you were to take a survey of 100 people in the church and ask them what was your main purpose for living, I would be willing to bet you that their actions would not show that their main purpose was to please God.
Right.
Their actions would show their main purpose was to be prosperous for many of them, or their main purpose was to raise children, or their main purpose was to, have a nice career. Those kind of things would be their main purpose. But if you look at the biblical figures that always remained on top and stayed on top, it was evident that their main purpose was not to please themselves, not to be prosperous. Their main purpose was to please God. But in pleasing God first, they always remain prosperous.
Yeah.
And if you look at the greatest example of that is the children of Israel when they went into bondage. And they were told by God, the prophet told them, hey, listen, you're going to be there for a long time. You're going to be there for a long time. So when you go there, don't look to come back home. Look to go over there. Look to live in those houses. Look to stay there until God brings you out. And in fact, there's a psalm that says this: how can we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? And what that was basically saying was, how can we get so excited about being here when we were in captivity? Right. And the answer was simple, and that is try to please God no matter where you are. So I think that's the key thing. That's what I'm saying, preparation. So what am I trying to do anyway? What is it? If I'm using all of me to please God, then God is going to never allow me to succumb to the wiles of the enemy, because that will show he is not as powerful as the forces against me. And in fact, when you're reading through the Bible, oftentimes when he said, I'm going to knock these children out, I'm going to do this to them, when you think about when the prophet would come back to him, he would always say that the only reason why God has not destroyed all of you for your hard-headedness is because he don't want it to be said that he was not a powerful God and that he couldn't take care of his children.
Yeah. And when you put it in that perspective, it's like you're inadvertently put yourself in your bad situation by not trying to please God. Because one thing I can say is that everybody in the Bible so far that I know of, when they was pleasing God, nothing can stop them. Nothing. Unsurmountable odds against them, and it just magically would just it's nothing, like a brush with his finger, just like knock everybody out.
No matter what came against them.
Right.
And you're right.
And then the second that the people that was, and we've talked about this, and then if he had, like with Gideon, he had too many people. So you had too many people because the people there did not believe. So therefore, it would be hard for him to win. You need to have only the people that believe in what they're doing, because they're doing it not for Gideon. And I think that's the part that I think people miss in leadership is that it's not you, it's the vision or what you're doing it for, which is for God, which
Right.
really should propel them. Because if it's just you leading, then we would have big trouble.
Absolutely. You think about it this way. Even if you're not a believer, let's say you're not a believer in the word, if those that are subordinate to you are not working so that your company can be successful,
Right.
but they're only working so that they can get a paycheck, what happens is they don't treat your customers the way you want them to treat your customers.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Because their primary concern is getting a paycheck and them being happy.
Right.
Because they don't treat your customers, that way. What happens is you start losing customers.
Mm-hmm.
And the more customers you lose, after a while, your profit decreases. So you end up having to lay off or fire the people that thought that they were secure.
Right.
So now they go through a slump. Now, they won't think about that the reason they're going through a slump is because what they did. Their thinking is the economy is bad. Their thinking is boss didn't like me. They're
Right.
thinking if I was unfairly terminated. Not thinking that because their mindset was, well, I came on time every day.
Mm-hmm.
I did what you told me to do every day.
Mm-hmm.
I did the bare minimum every day.
Right.
You did do the bare minimum every day. But the bare minimum didn't put us in a position to compete with somebody else.
Right.
So now they have all of our customers.
Right. That's right.
And for example, I know when I was in grad school, for example, we did a case study on Walt Disney, and one of the things that Walt, when he was just starting Disney World, one of the things he always pushed to his people was always give them a little extra. That was the mantra. Always give them a little extra, because his thing was we are competing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't want you to give them what they paid for. I want you to give them more than what they paid for.
Right.
And that's how they went, and that's how they pull people from everywhere. Because customers was like, if you go here, we always get more.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at it from a secular standpoint, it's the same principle. If you look at it from a biblical standpoint, it's the same principle. And that principle is you have to understand why you are doing what you're doing. And if you can excel in that, you won't have a downturn. Like you talk about, you look at Moses, for example. I mean, were there really any downturns? No. If you think about it, he get to the edge of the Red Sea. For us, we would say that's a downturn.
Right.
I'm at the edge of the Red Sea. I got Pharaoh behind me. I got desert to one side. I got mountains to one side. I got water in front of me. I'm in trouble. God said, stretch out your staff.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sea opens and you walk through. And you're going through the sea is what caused you to have victory. Because when the army came behind him, the sea closes up on them and they all drowned. Now, what if he had not been following God? If he had not been following God, if he had not been doing God's purpose, then the sea wouldn't have opened up.
Right.
Pharaoh's army would have caught him and they would have been demolished right then and there.
Right.
So, I would say that the first and foremost, the key to not experiencing a valley is understanding that it's only a valley if God doesn't pull me out of it. Right?
Right.
Now, so that would say to me, I need to ask myself every day, and I can tell you, I ask myself this question every night before I go to bed and every morning. Did I do God's purpose in my life today? Not did I do what I wanted. And I'm not saying I don't do some of the things I want because I'm human.
Right.
But did I fulfill God's purpose in my life today? If you ask yourself that question every night and every day, then things will change. Because what will happen is you will start to position yourself not where you thought you should be, but where God wants you to be. And as Paul said, if God be for us, who can be against us?
Right.
If God be for us, he's more than a whole world against us. And that's what every one of those characters in the Bible found out. As long as God was for them, they could not lose, and they did not lose.
Yeah. And it's that's amazing, because I can tell you right now, just hearing that and changing my mindset, there's a lot of things I got to change in what I'm doing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not a whole lot that you got to do. Because if you think about it, it don't really take much to get in trouble, and it also don't take much to stay out of trouble.
Right.
So, but like Jim Rohn would say, what's easy to do is also easy not to do.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about that before about just going to church.
Right.
After you hit about three Sundays in a row, he kind of gets on the streak, and next thing you know, it turns into 6-7 months.
Right.
But the same token, you go to church 3 times in a row, and it can turn into 12 months straight of going.
Absolutely. You think about how many people go to church to get rather than to give.
Right.
How many people go to church with a mindset that when I go here, I'm going to give God something when I get there? I mean, we kind of forget the reason why we go to church. The Old Testament is kind of like the blueprint, right? And the New Testament, it's kind of refined a little bit. Old Testament makes it clear that the reason why we assemble the saints together is to worship God in some format. They brought their offerings to the Lord, their burnt offerings, so it's to worship God in a certain way. Well, and the New Testament doesn't eliminate that. Jesus said, don't think I came to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law. So that would suggest that when we come to church, we should be, and we say this all the time, people just don't do it though, so I should be coming to worship. I should be coming to bring God something. But that's not what people do. They don't come to bring God something. They come to get something. See, if the pastor doesn't motivate you to worship, you don't worship. Mm-hmm. If the choir doesn't motivate you to worship, you don't worship. But that's not the pastor's job to motivate you to worship. Your worship should be based upon the majesty of the God that you serve. The irony is this: we will worship our favorite sports team quicker than we will worship God.
Yes.
I was at an event. One of our members, for example, invited me to their home this past weekend to start off the football, season. And we were sitting around talking, and one of the young ladies said about a friend of hers. She said, "Pastor, let me tell you, she's a Dallas fan. If Dallas lose, she ain't gonna talk to you for 3 days. And if Dallas wins, it's on up in there."
Right.
Now you think about this for a second. Dallas pays no bills for these people.
Right.
Dallas puts not one morsel of food on their table. Dallas, the football team, does not help them with their bills. Dallas does not help them with their health, and none of that stuff.
Right.
But they worship the team. They wear the uniform. They buy all this stuff. Spend all this money. They cheer them on. They're in their homes cheering a team on that's miles away, right? Mm-hmm. And the team doesn't see them. The team doesn't know they're yelling for them, but they're still cheering for them.
Right.
Now, we come to church and we can't cheer. We don't cheer for God.
Right.
We don't come that motivated every time we come to God. But no fan comes to a home game without being motivated before they get there to cheer for the home team. In fact, they're in the parking lot hours before the game starts, tailgating, right? Getting psyched up so they can get in there and cheer the team on. Well, think about how God would feel if we came to church 2 or 3 hours early,
right,
and got psyched up and motivated that, you know what, when I come in there, I'm gonna be the loudest thing cheering on God. I'm gonna be the loudest thing saying, Lord, I love you. I'm gonna be worshiping with everything I got. But that ain't what we do.
Mm-mm.
We come late, right?
Right.
We sit there and we say, Lord, I need you to increase my faith. Lord, I need you to protect. Lord, I need you to give me. Lord, See, we're not coming to give God anything. And then we're wondering why God isn't pleased. But see, our concept is, I came to church, Lord.
Right.
I'm doing everything you told me to do. No, we're not.
And then, and the ironic thing is, we're telling him what we need like he don't already know.
Right. Yeah. And it's okay to tell him, but the bottom line, that's not why you should have came.
Right.
You come to the worship.
You maybe really sit and really think about it, because I was visualizing church as a football game when you was talking.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and that was funny the ironic thing is, if you had folks outside the church tailgating, you had homeboy on the grill,
mm-hmm.
and you had the other guy with the libations and the liquor and the people playing cards, church be packed every Sunday.
That's right.
But the crazy thing, let's take out the alcohol part, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing stopping that from happening now, where people can cut. You ain't saying you ain't got to come here. Don't come 3 hours before service. You ain't said that. You know, but granted, 8:45, people just start rolling in at the 9 o'clock service,
right?
And then about 9:30, everybody's in there, and now we're ready to roll over something.
No. Now we're ready for me to get them ready to roll.
Right.
Or get them ready to roll.
But over something that is like, because rooting for Dallas Cowboys is not going to help your life unless your son or relative is playing for the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, still might not help you because they ain't giving you no money. So unless it's your son,
right?
It ain't gonna help you. And he already got a contract.
He already got a contract.
So rooting for them ain't still gonna help you because whether you root or not, if they win, he gonna still cook you up, right?
Right. The ironic thing, Pastor, I was because it's football season, and I was talking to my wife, and she was like, "All these people getting all hyped up," and I said, "Well, I think it's for people that did not play. Most of my friends that played, top level college football, and someone went to play in the pros, they don't get that excited because." Like, I have a Walter Payton jersey because I admired Walter Payton when I was a kid. So that's the only jersey that you would see me wear for the Chicago Bears. Otherwise, if I'm going to wear one, I get a custom jersey with the number I would have worn with my name on the back.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Even with all of that, I don't watch any football game unless it's like the Super Bowl or something from beginning to finish, unless it's the Oklahoma Sooners, the team, or Southern Jaguars, the two teams I actually played for.
Right.
And even in that, of course I'm upset if we lose, but it lasts about 5 minutes.
Well, and I would say there are a lot of people that aren't football fanatics. Let's say that. They never play football.
Right. That's what I'm getting at.
But still not football fanatics. So I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying. But I don't think the issue is whether you played or not. I think the issue just is your mentality of what you value. And that's the point I'm making.
Right.
It's what do you value? Because there are players that may not value football, but value the club just like they ought to be valuing the church.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
Because they might not go to a game, but they hit the club every Friday.
Right.
And then they're ready every Friday. Matter of fact, they're thinking about the club on Thursday.
Yes.
And they're getting ready on Thursday. And then on Friday, it's on up in here. So I'm just saying, it's not so much the game I'm trying to make the analysis with, but it is what you value. And my point is that if we were to value what God wants us to do, because that's the thing, that if you walk away from where he wants, that's when the valleys come. So if we value what God wants us to do, if everyone would say, with the same way I value going to the club on Friday night, that, okay, you get ready on Saturday. You might go buy clothes on Wednesday even for that Friday night. You call the guys up, hey guys, look here, we're going to meet such and such time, such a place, all that kind of stuff. I'm saying that same kind of fervor that we put for those kind of things, whether it be our football team, whether it be our going out, I don't care what it is. It could be your car. If you value your car, there are people that wash and wax their car on Sunday, and so they can go to car shows. I'm just saying, whatever it is, the Bible says, put no other God before me. And our thought process is, well, that means I shouldn't worship the moon and the stars. No, it means put nothing before God. So that's what our worship should be. So I'm just saying, for those people who find themselves on these roller coasters, in these valleys, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. If you don't want to go through the valley, then that's what you have to do. You have to position yourself. So my primary purpose in life is to serve God. That's my purpose. Now, I got to figure it out. So however it is, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm saying, if you do that, how can you fail? So the Bible says, there is no failure in serving God.
So why do you think we don't do it?
Because we're selfish. I mean, think about it. The world has taught you to be selfish. Your parents have taught you to be selfish. Your teachers have taught you to be selfish. Everybody does. Everybody teaches you to look after yourself so you can be prosperous. That's how they teach you. Go to school, get a good education. Why? Not so you can serve God.
Right.
Right. See, we're not. Even though we say it, but we don't act upon what we even say. You know. I'm saying that's why it's so easy for us to do otherwise, just like it was easy for the Israelites to do otherwise. Because remember, for them, they didn't have the same benefits we have. They didn't come to the church every Sunday like we do, you know, because everybody didn't live that close. Right. And they didn't have Facebook. They didn't have television. They didn't have
right.
So so for them, it was easier for them to fall away. Now, our point is, well, if I saw what they saw, if I had witnessed what they witnessed,
right.
no way how to turn my back on God. Well, we are witnessing what they witnessed, and we witness it more often than they witness it. And we still turn our backs on God. You know, we still will not do what he wants us to do, and we still legitimize not doing it. And I can tell you, you know, because in our hearts we think it's okay until we get in the valley.
Right.
Then, boom, we gun ho then. But I'm saying, you know, why legitimize it? Think about what God is asking you. I tell people in Bible study this all the time. Think about how many hours God is asking you to give him. Just for worship, right? Just for worship. 2 hours out of how many?
180 hours in a week or something like that?
2 hours, right?
Right.
2 hours. There's no way anyone listening to me right now can convince me that they don't throw away 2 hours doing little or nothing.
Yeah. When I train people on time management, it's the first thing I tell them. I say, I can easily find you 2-3 hours, and sometimes 6 hours a day.
I can find at least 4 a day to most people.
Right.
They're watching TV, right? Or they may be reading a book. And I'm not saying reading ain't valuable, but it certainly is not as valuable as worshiping God. So they're TV, they may be reading a book, they may be taking an afternoon nap when they come home. Or on Sunday, they may be saying, I'm going to clean my house up, or I'm going to take the kids to the movies, or I'm going to go to Busch Garden. All these kind of things. I'm saying, it's the irony of it is how easy it is for us to say, I don't have 2 hours for God. And if I do give him 2 hours, I'm not giving him all out me. I'm asking him to give me something so I can be excited about him.
Right.
Rather than me coming with that mindset of I'm going to worship him. So again, going back to your original topic, which was why the peaks and the valleys and how to avoid the valleys. I'm just saying to avoid the valley is simple, and it starts out by just saying, you know what? Let me do first of all what I know I was created for, which is making him happy. And how do I make him happy? The same way people make us happy. Think about this. What's the easiest way for your wife to make you happy? To flatter you. That's the easiest way.
Right.
But it's so simple that we won't do it. If you think about when your wife, and I'm not saying your wife in particular, I'm just using the term. Usually when a wife wants a husband to do something, she doesn't flatter him. She fusses at him. She demands from him.
Right.
And let's say, and vice versa. If a man wants his wife to do something, he complains that she's not doing, as opposed to flattering her to get it done. But we know that's what we like. If somebody flatters you, you just all grins, you always want to be around them because they keep flattering you. It's always what we want. So I'm just saying, wouldn't it make sense if we are like that and we're made in God's image and say, wait a minute, let me try that. Let me flatter God a little bit. Let me pick him up a little bit. This is how we know it works. Look at David, King David, right? Look at David's lifestyle. David was a murderer. He murdered a man to get the man's wife. That's pretty tough right there, ain't it? He was an adulterer, right? That's pretty tough stuff right there. He was a deceiver. All that kind of stuff David did. But we are taught that David was a man after God's own heart.
Right.
He was the best king that Israel ever had. How do you get that status being that character?
Right.
And if you read the Psalms that David wrote, it becomes clear. David flattered God all the time. Every Psalm talks about the greatness of God, The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. That's putting him on a pedestal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. See, David lifted him up all the time. We don't do that.
Right.
David said, if I could just be in his temple, I don't need nothing else. See, we don't think that way.
Right.
If I can just get to the church, I don't need nothing else. He flattered God because he understood the concept of worship. So I'm saying that's numero uno. Get that right first. The second thing we're going to do is to say, well, what is my true purpose? God, because I know you won't let me fail if I'm doing my true purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to find out your true purpose and then do that. And if you're doing it, you can't fail because God's never let you fail when you're doing what he purposed for you to do.
So I think we have heard what we need to do. And I know if you've watched and listened to this podcast, you're going to look at some of the things you do throughout the week and say, you know what, I could spend that time praising God and giving back to God. And also go out in the community and do God's work out in the community. And as the pastor say, a lot of times you can make a public service announcement when you're doing something for the Lord. And that's what he wants you to do.
A good mouthpiece for God is a good thing to have. Absolutely.
And don't worry about being cute if just get it done.
I would tell anybody, people sometimes wonder, how can I tell somebody about God? I don't have the words passed out on this. It's what you know. You know what brought you to him. Mm-hmm. And that's all you need to know. Because if you know what brought you to him, then you know how to use your experience to relate to someone else. To say, well, you know what? And it worked for me. And I believe it'll work for you. That's all we have to do.
Yeah. All right. Thank y'all for listening. This is your host, C.P. Baker. Till next time.